Hello, friends. My name is Wester Enrico, und I am the Wester de Toquiendo de Premiose de Piplioples, y feliz Día de Valentino. Oh, sí. Oh, sí. Feliz Día de Valentino. Por los couples y por los singles. No. I don't know how to say it doesn't matter in Spanish. It doesn't matter. If you're single, if you're in a couple, this is generally a group of individual style Valentine's Day party we're having here, Rachel and I, which is a nice kind of Valentine for us, I think, because, you know, it's, I think we're both SXSO. We put the group above our own self-preservation, for sure. So, anyhow, we're here. We're queer. We don't want any more bears. But if you should happen to arrive with bears, we won't kick you out. That was what we decided after a long discussion regarding the possible appearance of bears during today's stream. That's the course of action we finally settled upon as the one to be prescribed by sensible analysis of the matter. Okay, so what is the big question? Well, one could be wry in some fashion and say, what is the big question is the big question, right? But, and somewhat that's true. The big question, in some sense, is why isn't there consensus about what the big question is? But the problem with that line of reasoning is that, in fact, there's more consensus than one might think about such a murky topic, in that I think most people would agree the big question is, why are we here? Quote, where did people come from? Are they purposed for something, or is it just what we might call a random phenomenon? And of course, that issue of is it just yeah versus something more makes it fundamentally a normative question. Even though when we're asking where do people come from and why are we here? Why do we exist? Explicitly, we're not asking any moral questions. We're asking some explanation. We want an explanation as to why there is something rather than nothing. Why there are we instead of not we. Why there are plants and animals instead of just rocks and barren whatever. So when we're asking a question on the physical plane there, we have a nice example of how one has to ask these questions. When we're asking, why is it that Earth has life on it, whereas Mars or the Moon does not? Well, in that instance, we've got an example of each of those phenomenon, and we can mark the conditions that are met on the one that has life, that are not met on the one that doesn't have life, and try to make determinations about which of those conditions or combination thereof is determinant to the question of what really turns into a question of why doesn't the Moon or why doesn't Mars have life? Why do those planets deviate from where we are right now? Another question I wonder is, why do we wonder at all? Why do we ask these questions? Is there any point to wondering at all? So, that's a good big question. why do we ask these questions? Why wonder at all? And I don't know if I necessarily have an answer to that, but I would say that we probably have an equivalent example to the Moon-Mars thing with that question. Why do we wonder at all? Why do we ask these questions? Well, I ask these questions, you ask these questions, various other people ask these questions, but most people probably don't spend a lot of time asking these questions, you know? Most people, as they're going through their lives, aren't spending a great deal of time wondering about questions beyond the scope of their own existence. And I guess what's implicit in your question there, King, is well, you know, to be a fully reasoned person, or to be a fully realized person that's not mentally retarded, the threshold test, the operationalizable definition is metacognition. People who are not mentally retarded can metacognate to some extent. That is to say, they can observe their own mental processes as though from an external vantage point, although they're never leaving their own head. One might argue that the same is true for meta-existentiality, which is to say, the capacity to wonder about existence is implicit to being a fully existent sentient being. But it's not a very satisfying answer, right? Although at least we have a comparable example to compare against to say, okay, that's a concept I can understand in this other comparable. It's still not a very satisfying answer. So, the thing is, I point out that when we're trying to answer these questions, we can begin by analyzing the questions for what kind of frame of reference they're seeking solvency within. So why do people exist is asking one of two different questions. It's asking for an explanation that says, here's the like video replay of the rock slide that explains how that tree got down here at the bottom of the hill when yesterday I thought it was at the top of the hill. Okay, here's the video replay. This explains why the tree is at the bottom of the hill. Like, why are we here instead of not here? Be it non-existent or someplace else. So one way to answer that question is to say, well, there was a rock slide last night and it knocked the tree down onto the bottom of the hill. Okay? And so when we're asking a question, why are we here, we're potentially looking for that kind of response to be, to like solve our, make us feel like our question's answered. But we could be asking, why are we here teleologically? Like, what is our purpose for being here? Not how did it come to be that the status quo is, but rather, why did it come to be that the status quo is? That presumes that there's some purposer, right? There's somebody there to purpose our existence for something. And the thing is, the purposer of our existence has to be outside of the purpose of any individual within that existence, right? Yeah, so origin versus purpose. Well, origin, see, the thing is, origin is too broad a question, too broad a term for it anyway, because it's like what I was saying. It's more like, if you're asking, why did we end up here versus somewhere else, or versus not here, then you're asking for a link story to explain how certain events or actions by non-sentient agents in a condition-ready environment produced change and created new objects of that had quality You know, they're looking for that kind of thing. Like, lightning struck the primordial pool and amino acids split, and that kind of explanation is what you're calling their origin. So when we ask the question why, we're looking for a replay of how it was done, right? Versus why, which is to say, an explanation as to why it came to be. It almost seems like because we can't know these things as we are now, we answer these things in a way that is convenient to our asking, like, why am I here, means completely different things to, well, I think origin correlates with how, okay? Because when we ask the question, like, where did we come from, or why are we here, or something, we're asking a couple of different questions as indicated. We're asking, how did I come to be here? How did the status quo come to be? What was it before, and how did it evolve into this? Whether our answer is evolution, or we didn't used to exist and then boom, we existed in full, it depends. But then the other question is it purposeful or not? Was it intended? Do we have some metric to evaluate whether or not our own lives are successful outside of our own subjective evaluatory mechanisms? Because basically people want to know, is this somehow, am I getting scored on this? You know, it's like, if I am, how do I know how I'm doing? We are so accustomed to viewing everything in terms of its teleology, either what we're going to use it for, what it's useful for, or what somebody else is using it for, that it's difficult for us to understand things in a non-teleological frame, including concepts like our own existence. It's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to be doing is a question that resonates with most people on one, if not all, of several time frames. Immediately, like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? I think I might be forgetting about something while I'm here picking my nails. Or what am I supposed to be doing in general? Okay, back to the plan. What am I supposed to be doing here so I can get back on track in my general medium to long term plan? Or what am I supposed to be doing as an identity that's understood as a character whose purpose / goal / thematic center can be articulated as such. So those are several different interpretations of, or several different reads and ways that people mean the questions and how they might answer them. Of course, what's satisfying to you depends on your cognitive function stack. So it's interesting then, because Abraham sent me a text earlier asking me to make a video on solipsism of all things. So I googled it to find out what solipsism meant, and then I made a video on it. And what it basically says is, the only thing you can really know exists is yourself. Everything else in the simulation might be simulated. Rachel might be an NPC, you know. Everybody else around me might be NPCs. I might be the only one who's alive. So let's say we're a simulation. And it comprised me, a real person who was in a sim pod on some other planet, and everybody else on the planet here was just NPCs. Well, from my perspective as the player in the game, I can't tell functionally the difference between my level of complexity as a human being and the NPCs. Or at least, I certainly encounter NPCs with varying degrees of complexity equivalent to mine, even if it might be in a different area, or even superior to mine in the same area, if you're talking about like an INTP or something, right? So, in terms of both being and affect and aspects of the being that I can access via getting functions, and also just my experience of other people also having limitations, and then maybe later on recognizing the same limitation in myself in a different capacity, and realizing, okay, they're not incomplete humans. They are complete humans, which are necessarily prioritizations of, you know, white side, black side, white side, black side, white side, white side, black side, kind of, you know, if you, it's not, it doesn't work so much in gradients in reality. Time is relative and singularities reveal a chink and egg conundrum. Well, it is true. It almost seems like because we can't know these things as we are now, we answer these things in a way that's convenient to our asking. Like, why am I here means completely different things to every person, but the answer you get isn't the ultimate answer. Right. The thing is, it's impossible to imagine, actually, what a satisfying... The reason we haven't meaningfully come to any answer to it is it's not possible for us to come up with an example of what a satisfying answer would look like, because it would always provoke the next level of question. Well, why is that the beginning? You know, what was before the beginning? And if it's an answer like, well, time doesn't work that way, well, then why are you saying that was the beginning even? If it's not the beginning, in other words, if it's not the destination point at the end of tracing time back as far as you can, then what is it? And if it is that thing I just described, then why can't you go back a little further? It's like infinity, you know? So somebody might say, well, time is circular. It goes around in a circle, and that's why you can't ever get to the end of a timeline like that. Okay, well, if it's circular, why isn't it not circular? And how is it circular? Is it circular like it goes all the way out one way and then rewinds itself back again all the way, like a tape measure? Because it's not circular from any of our experiences. In other words, I don't go tomorrow, the next day, tomorrow, today, tomorrow, the next day, tomorrow, today. I don't have that experience as time is circular, and nobody else does either. So if you're describing it as being circular on some sort of galactic scale, then you've got to explain still, how did it come to be? Has it ever not been? And if not, then how can it even be? Because isn't the state of not being implied by the state of being? That it's at least possible for the thing to not be, and for those conditions to be met, and what something would look like that. So it's a weird question we ask, you know? I mean, I suspect well, here's one way to look at it. Here's an argument in favor of simulation theory. So, if this were a simulation, we'd be limited in how much we could understand about reality, because we'd eventually run into the fact that certain parts of the physics of reality weren't simulated, really. So, like, let's pretend that evolution actually is responsible for speciation. Well, if it is, then unfortunately it's a setting you turn off and on in the simulation. We can't possibly understand it or reproduce it or anything because it's turned to setting off right now. And so obviously any sane person is going to say that's completely bullshit. Evolution didn't occur no matter how much it looked like it did, because we can test those mechanisms and prove they don't exist. Except it's because the setting was turned off, you know? It's like if you have natural disasters turned off in some city, then you don't have to worry about your city getting blown away by a hurricane. There's lots of reasons to think it is a simulation, like SimCity, but it's called Sim Earth, I guess. And whoever's playing it, they kept for many, many millions of years, for many, many attempts. I don't know how long it was for them in their time, but every 40 million years, they'd reset the thing. They'd have to do global annihilation, global reset, basically. They'd have an asteroid hit the Earth every 40 million years, and we go back to microbes and corals. And then he kept doing this, and after every 40 million year reset, he'd get a little bit better at whatever process it is that evolves life on the planet, right? He'd get better at it. You get, I got not just corals, I got fish too. Oh my God, fantastic. I'm moving up in the world. But it's still not good enough to hit a dead end. Asteroid hits the Earth. Okay, cool. Now I've got like lush jungles and volcanic whatevers and shit's going well. Anyway, he keeps every 40 million years having to reset, start over, he hits some dead end. Finally gets to the dinosaurs, and he's got everything maximally attained, fauna, flora, but at the expense of sentience, self-aware intelligence. So he, one more time, big asteroid, gets rid of all the dinosaurs, and then that time it worked. He got humans going. And it's been 66 million years since the asteroid. 22 million years late. Why? Well, because he doesn't need to reset this time. He finally got what he was trying to get, which was intelligent life. That's the holy grail in this game, Sim Earth. Makes perfect sense if you look at the pattern of asteroid hits and the lack of one for the last 66 million years. So, for a lot, I mean, additionally, there's the fact that if it were a simulation like that, then we would all be equally NPCs. We'd be simulated individual persons, and we'd have a limited capacity to actually get down to the mechanics of reality, because we'd run afoul of the fact that it wasn't reality. It was a simulation, and it would not work on lots of levels. So, however, the thing is, if it is a simulation, I prefer it be a kind of simulation where, as I said before, I'm in a simulation pod on another planet. I'm actually 15 years old. I'm living one of the thousands and thousands of full simulated lives that I'm going to live thanks to life simulation pod technology, which allows human life, without being extended any further than 100 years, to experience the equivalent of 1,000 lifetimes. Namely, every day, or maybe even 30,000 lifetimes. Every day you can go experience an entire lifetime's worth of experience as though you lived it by just being in this pod all day. Now, that's what I'm doing right now. And potentially, if you guys are playing in the game, you're probably not here. You're probably not here if you are playing the game in the simulation. Then you probably have your own pool of NPCs listening to you and making you the main character, right? So then there'd probably be a 10,000 to 1 ratio of players to NPCs in this hypothetical pod world thing, right? On the other hand, it could be the case that friends get together in the pod world and decide to sim together and put themselves in close proximity to each other at some point in these lives, to the extent that there's variables that they can direct ahead of time. I'm sure it would not be able to be entirely predetermined, probably, because that would deny the fundamental engine that makes the game fun, namely the ability to make choices and make good and bad choices, right? Well, if you wanted to really wrap it in a nice movie-style frame of reference, you'd say the overarching purpose of that society is to get everybody to be a very SI-heavy value projection. Is to get everybody to experience everybody else's life and all the different ways people can live, so that you're, I guess, fully actualized as a being or something. I don't know. It's like you spend all your time in simulated lives, and what does it matter how you act when you're not being simulated? When you're not in a simulated life, you spend very little time doing that anyway. It's not like you'd be close to your mom. You'd be close to all the moms and all the simulated lives. To get you enlightened. There you go. Everybody loves enlightenment. Remember the other night, Rachel, when I became enlightened, I started floating up to the stars?
Oh, yes.
They glow emanating from me like the glorious truth from heaven. And all the people around put their hands like this and said, oh, Lord, has the day come? And I said, no, good friends, it is I. I have merely finally attained enlightenment, and I'm sorry for the bioluminescence. It naturally kicks in as soon as you attain enlightenment. Nothing I can do about it. I'm like one of those very under the water sea fish. When I was a kid, I used to think, what if I'm the only one who's actually conscious and everyone else is just simulating consciousness? Well, then, Ruben, you'd have to ask yourself, why do these people seem to be doing a better job of simulating consciousness sometimes than I do of actually manifesting it? Because it's not always the case that my consciousness is best. If I'm going to find some means of comparing instances of consciousness, assimilated lives seems like evolution. Well, evolution of coolness, maybe. It's the next level of Fonzie. It's the next level after Fonzie. Can I see that?
Yeah.
Where you go? Hand it over here. Like, the thing is, we all kind of seem like NPCs, if for no other reason. We're strangely consistent in our affects and displays and ways. You know, we're not necessarily very surprising. Even somebody like me, who's frequently trying to subvert expectations in a variety of ways and or be surprising, in and of itself, that is consistent and not surprising than when I do it. So it's like, one would imagine real people having more flexibility, adaptability, variability within themselves than NPCs. But if you look at actual people, it would seem to adhere closer to that quality of NPCs than of real people. No, the trigger. My consciousness is being stimulated by consciousness juggling stimulating factors. That's juicy, juicy. That's juicy smooth like an orange Julius. That reminds me of the trigger. It does seem as though I must have spent 14 billion years polishing this effect. It is that smooth. I'm not one to deny that. 28 billion, you say? Well, the truth is, it took me less than 6 billion years to polish this effect. That's right, friend. In fewer than 6 billion years, I went from vagabond and ragamuffin, layabout and no goodnik, to the impressive and important man you see before you today, sitting in front of a brick wall, doing whippets, and telling you the truth about existence. Ah, to the motherfucking men. Oh, friends, let's not dispute premises of simulation arguments. Let's instead impute the Kremlin's ease of Tarkington's good men. If you ain't a vagamuffin, you ain't seen nothing yet, 'cause I'm a vagamuffin, I bet. If you ain't a vagamuffin, you ain't seen nothing, 'cause yet I sure ain't a vagamuffin yet. I ain't your truff and tet. You what? Who said? Buff and fat and tough and tet. Who and Ted? I don't know what you want, said Bill and Ted. I ain't the what you would. I ain't a vagamuffin head. I ain't a vagamuffin Tom instead. I ain't a vagamuffin who came round instead, who said I want to bed. I love who led those who want to be bag. Hi Ali Shiva, how you doing? LMAFAO. WTF are you doing? Lol, the trigger. Alright guys, I'm about to break out of the simulation. There's nothing simulated about this, it's all real. It's all real all the time. It's too real for you to break free. It's as real as chains around your wrists, iron, constraining you with indelibility. How's the debate team? I'm actually not really coaching right now. I do a little bit of teaching, and I do typing sessions, and I do YouTube, and I live at my dad's house and keep costs as low as I can, and you know, try not to live large, and kind of grope my way forward in life, trying to figure out what I'm doing, where I'm going. Rachel and I both do, you know. Try to be happy, try to be free. Try not to scrape both of your knees when you're playing around, crawling on the ground, looking for worms, because you're going out of town. Am I getting laid? Yes. I'm in a long-term relationship. It's a wonderful long-term relationship with my delightful partner, Rachel. It's known as Rachel Lapalosa. And even though Lapalosa may mean in Italian hairy woman, she's not actually a hairy woman. It's a lie. Her name's a lie. But you know what? Her words aren't, and that's more important. You were jamming to the MIB theme a little bit a while ago, huh? Men in Black, is what that 3 letters stands for. Where did my cigarette ashtray go? Did I put it inside of your hoe? I don't think so. No, I don't. Where did my cigarette ashtray go? I can't find my ashtray. Is it because it went my way? Oh, there it is. It's over there. I'm going to give this back to you soon. If you're feeling like, hey, what you doing? I'll give it back to you in a second or two. Just chillax. Just chillax. What did I think of the Super Bowl? Wow, Morris, number one thing I want to tell you is this. That halftime show was absolutely fantastic, and I fucking hate halftime shows. I never watch them. They're always terrible. If I do watch any portion of it, it's like I watch a little bit and I'm just like, ugh, I hate this. Terrible. That was such a good halftime show. In fact, I watched Rachel and I watched the halftime show together again today, after the game. I was happy about the game, obviously, because why? Because the Rams won, and I'm from where? Where? That's right, Ontario, Vancouver. No, I'm from Los Angeles, California, silly. Home of the Los Angeles Rams. That's why they're called the Los Angeles Rams. Because they're from here. Anyhow. And I was impressed by the cavalcade of stars they brought out, They had Dre, Snoop, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, 50 Cent. They had Eminem. And then they had that lady. She wasn't really, nobody cared about her. But they had to include a lady or else people would freak out. I wish they could have gotten salt and pepper to do shoot instead. That would have been better. It was very much the Dr. Dre coronation show, though. I mean, kind of like a saddling of Los Angeles and hip-hop's legitimacy upon footballs and vice versa, and the reciprocal clusterfuck of media mutual humpery. But if you like, but if you like what was I thinking? I was thinking something very important. Now I'm not going to pass out. The trigger. Are you going to pass out flyers explaining why you're so stupid? Because a lot of us have been asking. And that's how you get your ass kicked. That's how you do it, friends. That's how you do it. With sass, with verb, with sauce, with nerve, with a willingness to preserve preserves. If you've got tangerine preserves left over from last winter, don't be afraid to eat them. They've probably not gone bad yet. But check first. Star Wars with a female protagonist who never needed anybody. Hey, you know what? Another old Leia. It's not like she was a softie. She was such a bitch, really. You might call her a country without a re. I certainly wouldn't want to get on that girl. You know, she's kind of snotty. She's kind of anti-Jewish. You know, like, hey, look at me, I'm Princess Leia, look how bossy I am. You know. You got typed as an ESFJ, I'm still in shock because I know I'm old to be in shock. Well, I don't type a lot of ESFJs. It is normal for people to spend some time reflecting on the impacts of a typing session. That's absolutely normal. I don't know if anybody in the typing session chat differed with me or anybody in the comments did. Usually somebody will. Well, I mean, look. Rachel and I have been watching bits of the Return of the Jedi. And, of course, one thing to remember is that Return of the Jedi is the movie in which Luke says, I see them, wait, Leia!
Has that part come up yet?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Did I see it?
I don't think you were out here when I saw it. We'll have to go back and relook at it. But what I would really like to memorize as a speech of sorts to give, or a performance of sorts to give, is C-3PO telling the Ewoks the story of what happened in Star Wars 1 as they're sitting around the fire. And the Ewoks are, you know, demonstratively into the story, visibly reacting emotionally to every twist and turn in the story. The children cowering in fear when C-3PO imitates Darth Vader's voice. I want to be able to imitate C-3PO speaking Ewok, telling the Ewoks the story of Star Wars 4. Episode 4. I have a goal finally, everybody. Everybody tell your TE friends and family members. Eric finally has a goal. I got a goal, Rachel.
What's your goal?
To learn that speech by C-3PO. That scene. To learn the parts. I like that part where Luke says, be right back, I gotta take a forceful piss. There's no such part.
Yeah, I'm like...
No such part exists. You're all for diversity in film. Yeah, that's why I like to make my films uniquely diverse, to add to the diversity of the totality of films out there by casting them with nothing but white heterosexual people. You know, because that's a film casting strategy that's really in the minority right now. It needs to be more representative. So I'm decided to improve diversity by reducing diversity. What do you think? What do you think about my plan, Elishiva? I'm going to cast only white people who are white as defined by the 1921 Act of Congress. So only people who were born in Asiatic Turkey are Armenian or something else that they said.
Yeah.
It won't include any of the Western Europeans. It used to be one of those 3 things that are named in the congressional law. I want to do a film about a black woman who works as a dominatrix, as a job, beating up on white corporate powerful men, but who in her own sex life likes to pretend to be the black slave of a plantation owner. Now there's a quirky storyline. Where do you go? What's going on?
Yeah.
Can she have that ability? She can do the first thing. She allowed to do the second thing. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Right? That's a good storyline. I'm not just another brick in the wall. I'm the most important brick in the whole wall. That one over there. There, that one. Nat Catnitch. 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 You don't see me. Well, that's your fault. You should put your eyes back in. We could call the movie Extremely Racist Kink. And the black one be the main character. And in both capacities, it's extremely racist kink. Both in her capacity as a dominatrix and in her capacity in her own life as the recipient of that. And that will be what you might call challenging art. Let's challenge people. People love being challenged. No, Eric, people do not love being challenged. That's why we rejected your earlier movie pitch, Sacagawea, Triumph of the Native Peoples. What? Look in the lower right-hand corner. What is the thing right there? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Here I am. It's my head. What am I doing down over there? I am sitting inside my chair. So, anyway. What were we talking about?
Justice rights.
Justice rights.
The American people.
My little buttercup has the sweetest smile. Gee, little buttercup, won't you stay a while? Who could see something with a cottage built for two? My little buttercup, sweet little buttercup, my little buttercup, I love you. It's my Valentine's Day song to Rachel.
Thank you.
You got my Valentine's Day hat. What? Love me, it says on that thing. And then on the other one it says, put my penis in your holes. What's that? They shouldn't have that on these little hearts. It's love, that one says right there. They're kind of hard to read. What does that one say? I can't tell what it says. It's a mystery. So, the thing is, that guy who was around here a second ago, who I typed as ESFJ, I don't know what to make of the fact that, like, I'm not sure if I've really encountered much of somebody who was NI-polar who did well on the rat test. So it may not be a good way to test where NI is, it might still be a good NI-polar test. I'm not sure. Anal question is a good name for somebody. I don't have a very good Scottish accent, but I guess it would be Scotland, home of the Moorish Highlands. Like that, probably. I don't think it relies on TE. That sounds like somebody who does not understand TE, Jeremiah Fix. There's no TE in the rat test. There is TE in trying to solve your mom's face, though. So, anywho, anal question has always resented his parents for naming him Anal Question. Early on, his teachers would say, "Your name is Anal Question Johnson Jasonovich?" Yeah, that's my name. "Why did your parents name you Anal Question?" they'd ask. And he's explained, Anal is an old family name. It was handed down. He's the Anal the Fourth, actually. Back in the day, it wasn't considered a funny name, you know. And that question they got to by combining your mom's name, Quinn, with his dad's name, Eston. And they came up with Question. So that's why it's Question. And Johnson is the mom's maiden name, and Jasonovich is the dad's name. So he's Anal Question Johnson Jasonovich. You're an INTP in the TISI loop of destiny advice. I don't know what the TISI loop of death is. Is that when you keep remembering things that you have to deliberate more, or what? Describe that. I want you to give me an example of something indicative of this larger pattern. It's an example of something that would, you know, be one piece that comprises this larger pattern. Purple burglar alarm. Rarely are the burglars I see purpler than violets, which aren't particularly purple. They're more violet in their colorings. Ali Shiva says, at Club EHP, I saw an interview with you. You speak so formal, lol. He speaks so formal? Like what? Good day, milady. Like that kind of stuff? Like, have you any ferns? Like that? That does sound fancy. Would you like some ferns? Thanks, squirrels.
Quarrels?
All right, Han, I'm gonna go ahead and, without embracing the full scope of your extreme displeasure at it, I'll say that I too have my doubts about the wisdom of Club EHP's habit of capitalizing all of his words. Do I think it's necessarily a good idea? No. Am I absolutely condemning it? No. But I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that that's a good thing to do. I'm going to have to be convinced by its eruptively great meow at some point, or else, Enunciation matters, just like. Yeah. Wow, that's nice. You have any left over there?
Yes.
You have these two.
Thanks.
Sorry, I dropped them on the floor. Here's another one.
Thank you.
And another two.
Oh, thank you.
Sure, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Whips are kind of like, to me. I still like them a lot. They kind of make me feel like, oh yeah. But by and large, my response to it is kind of like, well, it's like alcohol, in that you can't really do anything while you're experiencing it. It's not a, it's not a drug that goes along well with action types. So I think maybe if you were to try to have some sort of meaningful taxonomy of how people respond to different kind of drugs, whether they like them or not, and whether they are prone to getting like addicted to them or whatever, action types are going to be less prone to getting addicted to those kind of drugs that preclude action. They're going to be more likely to prefer uppers than downers because uppers are more consistent with action. Or if they're going to do downers, it'll be like they're tired of being action types. They want to go to bed. What would you type J.D. Salinger? They say he was an INFP, but I don't know. I mean, that kind of like hide away by yourself behavior and be weird seems to me like an ISFP behavior, but it could be INFP too. Like Prince, I think, was an ISFP, and he had that kind of weird, isolate, dislike the new reality when it came to control of his music and stuff. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, your action types, your interface types, those are, you might call action types. And your contemplation types are your knowledge or deliberation types, right? It's not a new taxonomy, it's just saying your subject types and your epistemological types. So if you've got a drug that makes it difficult for you to deliberate somehow, I guess like nitrous. Presumably like TIF. I test like nitrous as much? I don't know. Nitrous makes it difficult. But I think the impact of nitrous has to do with each individual person. That it sort of knocks out your dominant function and it releases your fifth. Will you stop, Boba Fett? God, I might, but you just make me feel bad every time you say that. You say that after you said earlier, like, more stream. I start streaming, and you're like, more type police. Well, stream is not as good as type police. Like, I mean, stream is not the same as type police. You can't have both. You're double binding me like a damn narcissist. Quit your narcissistic ways, Boba Fett. Quit narcissistically double binding me into anguish and trauma. What is the great question? Well, Cat Nitch, the great question is this. Basically, it's why are we here? Or why are there people instead of not any people? Why is there life and the internet and everything instead of not or something else? That kind of question. That's the kind of question I'm talking about. We do have a lot of perks roaming free. I should do some type police. Maybe I will later. I don't know. I would like to, but I just don't ever seem to quite feel it at the moment, you know? So anyway, the answer to the question of why are we here is really asked in two different frames of reference. One of them being some sort of explanation of how it came to be that the status quo emerged from the past. First, evolution is that kind of explanation. You know, why are we here in terms of do we have a purpose, or is it sort of implies a creator? If we are purposed, then we are purposed by something that can purpose, which is some kind of an agent. Sure. So it's like, if we want to answer the question, what's our purpose? Then we've got two choices. We can say either we're purposeless or we're purposed. If we want to say we're purposed, then we've got several choices with that. We can try to say we're purposed, but without any specific agent purposing us. Just sort of sidestep the question of purposed by whom. We can try to answer it with a specific question, a specific answer like by God, Allah, or whatever. Or we can try to answer it by what you might call a reification of some sort. We're purposed by our genes to reproduce them. Of course, genes don't really have a purpose because they're not sentient creatures. They're just genetic mess. We're just a creative, open-ended masterpiece, and we're being watched immediately by our creator. Well, in that case, our purpose would be to exist in interestingly unpredictable ways that presumably somebody who was watching would be amused by. In that case, if our just being as we are is amusing, then either that creator is likely to be looking at it from sufficient distance to not really be amused by any of the individuals that comprise humanity, but rather by the movements of humanity as groups in general. The question becomes more particular as to be asked, well, what is my purpose? Is it just to be part of a larger thing that has a purpose, namely humanity? Or do I have a purpose specific within humanity, or even a purpose outside of humanity? Those are other good questions. To be or not to be doesn't seem like a good question. Because you're asking yourself then, should I exist or not exist? Well, the answer obviously is exist. That one's an easy question to answer. So, if a creator has created us as a open-ended, dynamic, evolving systems that's self-sustaining kind of chemical chain reaction or whatever, but with more complexity to it because it's got individual agents who can render the environment independently and take action within it, then, I mean, of course, the problem with that kind of thing is it doesn't answer any questions, right? You ultimately end up asking, okay, well, where did that creator come from and what's his deal? Happy Valentine's Day. If you don't have a Valentine today, Rachel and I will be your Valentine.
Yeah.
Self-sustaining, kind of going against the tide of an entropic universe for a while. I mean, yeah, that all makes sense, Ruben, there. But it still doesn't really address the question that gets pushed back, which is, so what's up with this creator guy then? Where did he come from? Is he also the part of a system that is being observed by a creator? Is it turtles all the way down? You know? Or do we have something else we can glean from this whole thing? Is there a satisfying end to the questions? That's really the big question. Can we reach an end to questioning? That may be the big question right there. Is it possible to reach an end to questioning? And the answer to that is probably no. I can't imagine there'd be some sort of answer that would be satisfactorily put to bed the question of, but what about before that, or why that, you know? In the beginning there was ENTP. Maybe. In the beginning there were the slabs. They were just the slabs, that's all. But they were able to observe their own existence, else they wouldn't have existed. They were self-observing slabs. In the very, very beginning, there were the self-observing slabs. And they never moved. I have a better question. What is nothing? Before there was anything. And how do you define what nothing looks like? Is it black? Is it white? Does nothing even exist, or did it ever exist? Well, I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be possible to observe nothing because nothing would preclude you and your observational capacities. So, nothing conceptually is the absence of everything except for an observer who's able to observe the absence of everything. It's only a meaningful concept in contrast to the presence of everything, which the observer can presumably observe in some other capacity. Nothing is what rocks dream of. That's Aristotle's answer to it. That's a good answer. So, in other words, we have the capacity to understand when a given mia has no representatives of set mia in their bag. How many apples does Jerry have? 1. How about Mary? 2. What's in Sue's bag? Nothing. So it means she, in that case, it's contextually understood to mean she has no apples in her bag. So that's what nothing is. It's a way of our relating. It's like tall or short. It's a way of comparing things, really. It's not actually a status in and of itself. The set Sue's bag has no apple representatives. Correct. Exactly. I'm going to. Nothing might be illegal from the beginning of time. Well, that's the thing, is like the question of how it came to be that an observable universe emerged from something impossible to have observed. In other words, whatever preceded observable universe wasn't observed, for sure. Whatever preceded the observed universe wasn't observed definitionally. So it, as far as we're concerned, didn't exist. Now, we can observe back in time by looking further with the telescope, and in that sense, we render those events into existence by observing them. Well, that's why we have prepositions, Karma's pen. I didn't say, what does she have in her hand? I said, what does she have in her bag? If I had included that what does she have in her hand, then the answer would be a bag. But if I say, what does she have in her bag, the bag is not an answer to that. She doesn't have her bag in her bag. She has nothing in her bag. Air would be another acceptable answer. She has air in her bag. Lint. Her crushed hopes and dreams. Those could be in her bag, possibly. I gotta get myself a cup of coffee. Anybody here want a cup of coffee? Karma's Pen, Club HP, Ruben, Show Media. Rachel, you want a cup of coffee?
Yes, please. I don't know where my mug is, my cat mug.
Oh no. Rachel's lost her coffee mug.
Yes.
Or perhaps I've lost mine and I'm using Rachel's. That's always possible too.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful host E. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, Ruben. I will splash your coffee directly at the screen for you to drink. But I'm just going to do it imaginationally. Okay? Yeah. It's good stuff. Lady Lou, here's some for you. It's a Valentine's Day hat that Winston's mom got for us. She said, here, have a Valentine's Day hat. I said, why thanks. How seasonally appropriate. Coke might kill you right now? Really? Why, do you have a cocaine allergy or something? Makes you break out and wanting to do more cocaine. You just recently drove yourself out of a slump. How did you drive yourself out of a slump? Was it in your car? I have a cocaine allergy, but it's an unusual cocaine allergy in that instead of making me sneeze, it makes me snort. It's kind of like backwards pollen. Shunyata is xerinus. The problem with your idea is that it's chock full of Zunyata, Shunyata. You'll be back soon, just a few more weeks. Have you been gone for a long time? Occult and Divination with Mike Zulu Jr. Where you been? Have you been off in Alaska shooting bears with your Alaska gun? If all the ENTPs joined forces, they wouldn't be ENTPs who aren't actually the very good team players. ENTPs want to be the center of the jamboree. They don't want to cooperate with each other at all. Although it might be nice to imagine a place where we could all get together in agreement and make sweaters of truth or of fun for everyone. It's just a pipe dream. ENTPs are mean, or at least lean and kind of green when it comes to being a team player. I'd like to play on this team of yours, so long as I never find myself bored. You've got to constantly entertain me, which likely means letting me be the NTP. And you know how that's gonna be. It's sad, but the NTP conundrum is exactly that. Room full of ENTPs not able to settle on a song to pick, and ultimately they need all their own songs at the same time. Cacophonous and unrhyming like a sad book that reminds us of a cancerous look. And I want to wonder if I knew that I wanted to be one then. That's a good ENTP song.
Yeah, it is.
Like Ruben says, make a good track 12. Zero-ness is the inability to answer that question, huh? Old train rolling through a old-timey place. Old-timey ways, making up an old-timey face. Old-timey what now? Old-timey who? Old-timey what do you think I'm gonna do? It's old-timey. It's old-timey time. It's old-timey time. Be the star of the olden days parade, and I'll say great. I'll be the marshal in your horse-drawn carriage. I won't be late, I understand the merit of the ancient today is the important way to bring the community together. Oh yeah, it's olden days in here in town. We dress up like 1917 and wow, look at us walking all around. You can't see the bus, we got the sound muffled up to preserve the illusion that we travel back in time. Kinda like how at Colonial Williamsburg you find a guy who can shine your shoes in the old-fashioned way like they do in Colonial Williamsburg. Come outside, your arms are folded. I'm getting scolded for playing again. I wanna be as much as I can in terms of the man you want me to be. I gotta do what I got to do. I'll include you in everything that I can. Cause I'm your man, and you're my girl. I mean my woman in the world. You are the one I will be with till the dying day. I want your belief, you want my attention. I got invention going again. I wanna be as much as I can in terms of the man you want me to be. Kimberly, please don't be mad at me. Though I made this song, cause I'm your man and you're my girl. I mean my woman in the world. You are the one I will be with till my dying. And I'm your man, yeah, you're my girl. I mean my woman in the world. You are the one I will be with till my dying day. Until my dying day. Sure, what do you want me to play, Cat Nitch? No problem, that's some romantic music for you. Let's see what Cat Nitch wants to hear on our song request. You want me to play Once, Twice, Three Times a Lady? Here's a Valentine's Day song while we're waiting for Catnish to specify. Love, sweet love is a feeling in your heart. An attachment that you've got to a person or a thing or a piece of art. Love is tender, love is kind, and love is true. You love me, and I love you. We're in love. Love is the moisture that carries boats across the sea and them afloat. Love is the tenderness that infuses chicken when you get it without the bone. If you think you can love by yourself, you're wrong. Love is a two-person sport, and at least you better get along as a prerequisite to loving somebody. 'Cause if you don't get along, then you might say you hate them just as well as love them. That's a love song, but I fucked it up. Not very romantic, ultimately. I wouldn't put it on the jukebox for your first date. Let's put it like that. Our INTPs actually very smart. Our INTPs actually very smart. Or is it normal for those types to appear dumb? Are INTPs the ones who will appear smart? Or do they have an art in which they convince others that they're dumb? Well, all I know is this: if everybody thinks you're an idiot, INTP, I mean, then you can determine something this sense. You've not been a very big piece about being verbose. That's the least you could do as an INTP, is talk all fancily. If you don't even do that, then are you really an INTP? Well, I doubt it, 'cause fancy talk's a specialty of both the INTP and me. If you reject that fancy talk, can't convince anybody that you're not a narc. Can't convince anybody that you are smart. Or perhaps you're not an INTP. Oh yeah. Forgot about that. Yes, Karma's Pimp, that was. Up mountain, going to the loaf. Far from the city below. Going to the loaf. Up mountain, going to the loaf. Up those windy roads, mountain sunshine on the trees. Far above the smoky city, mountain sunshine on those trees. Mountain sunshine on the trees. Far above the smoky city, mountain sunshine on those trees. Going to the loaf. Up mountain, going to the loaf. Far from the city below. Going to the loaf. Up mountain, going to the loaf. Up those windy roads, mountain sunshine on the trees. Far above the smoky city, mountain sunshine on those trees. Mountain sunshine on the trees. Far above the smoky city, mountain sunshine on the trees. Going to the loaf. Up mountain, going to the loaf. Up mountain. Going to the loaf. Up mountain. Going to the loaf. Far from the city below. Going to the loaf. Up mountain. Going to the loaf. Travel the windy roads and go to the loaf. There, loaf-tastically wonderful. Do you want to play a song with me before we end this stream? Like perhaps Cloudy Day in Los Angeles or Gregory?
Yeah, either.
Let's do Gregory and then do and then we'll do Cloudy Day, okay?
Okay.
Here's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise. He hates the lies, wants to confront the men, always telling them. But every time he tries, they only run and hide. Again he is denied a chance to yell at them. So now he's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive. Averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory in disguise.
He hates lies, wants to confront the men, always telling them. But every time he tries, they only run and hide. Again he is denied a chance to yell at them.
Until the bridge brings a new approach. Sneakily he'll tread in disguise, hands in his pockets. Now he's walking down the drive, averts his eyes. He doesn't want you guys to realize that he's Gregory. Now let's do a cloudy day. It's
Very.
he started.
It's a very cloudy day in Los Angeles. And today we run out of time. Troubles past, troubles still to come. Day is nearly done. Can someone buy us some more time?
Cloudy day in Los Angeles. Cloudy day in LA. I'm a sort of evangelist, but I have something to say. Life can strangely be forgiving to those who stay awake all night.
Voices you say to give in.
They'll try to stop your will to fight. But whether I'm supposed to be here or just be soon forgotten, noise is sort of based on what I see here and also on what I avoid.
It's a very cloudy day in Los Angeles. And today we run out of time. Troubles past, struggles still to come. Day is nearly done.
Will someone buy us some more time? Cloudy day in Los Angeles. Cloudy day in LA. I'm no sort of evangelist, but I have something to say. Something to say. Okay, alright. Well, that's it for that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. That feels like about all the live streaming I've got in me at the moment, really. Yeah, I suspect the mics are a little hot. I wasn't really watching the levels that carefully. My bad on that. This mic might be a little iffy too. It's got kind of an iffy connection to it.
Thanks. Thanks, Catnish.
Thanks, Chloe NSB. Thanks, Catnish. Thanks, Lady Lou. You thought you checked it earlier? Well, you gotta check your penis more than once a day because it could disappear at any moment. Why don't you get an electric plug for your butt, Boba Fett? Why don't you do that? Thanks, New Groove. Audi 5000, indeed.
Oh, happy 5,000.
Piggity pow and pugity pew. Thanks a lot for the $2.22, Ruben. I
Yes.
appreciate that. Thank you. I wasn't able to say it at the time, so I was in the middle of playing something. Anyway, be assured they will be well spent on important things like gum.